makes it very difficult to try to get them on board for another one.
In Kitchener, Ontario, another private sponsorship coalition is readying a vacant house rented for the Shine family, victims of a civil war that left them no opportunity for a safe return to any part of their home country.
The war started and it was very difficult. The husband was to be drafted into the army. He didn't want to be drafted because he would have to fight his own family because she is from Bosnia and he is from Serbia, and therefore they had to leave the country. The family is not interested in war, they are opposed to war, and they want to live in peace, and the only way they could do that is leave the country.
The Shine family are an example of a family who urgently needed protection. Without the direct and rapid intervention of their sponsors, Ivka and her 2 children would have been deported from Germany back to Bosnia. Within days of their arrival in Canada, the Shines were employed. Dragon found work sorting apples, while Ivka literally plugged into the Canadian workforce. Son Demir found custodian work, and Daniela enrolled in school. All these occupations were researched well ahead of their arrival by their private refugee sponsorship group, including the acquisition of Mimi the cat for Daniela.
I had a cat in Yugoslavia and her name was Mimi too.
Eventually there were 6 churches in total that agreed to be part of this group. We responded to an urgent situation and we had sponsored other families previously so that it wasn't a new experience for us.
Another family in need of protection, and showing the special needs of women heading single-parent families, Jawar Sultan Kakar and family fled Afghanistan in fear for their lives. When they arrived in Russia, the family was intact. Unable to return home, and with no rights in Russia, they sought private sponsorship to Canada.
I had 2 interviews. The first interview that I went was with my husband, and at that time all the questions were directed to my husband most of the time, and I was wondering that even I'm a refugee, how come I'm not questioned much. After a little while, unfortunately, my husband was died due to food poisoning, and then we were asked to come after a long period of wait for the second interview. I got the feeling that they are worried more about how I'm going to settle myself as a single mother in Canada with my kids. But I kept on convincing them that I never want to live on charity, and I'm going to manage my life out there once I have some peace and my children are growing up and they could help me.
It was a large family. It took me some time to arrange sponsorship for them and to do the background check to find out. I knew that resettlement will be the only solution, durable solution for that family, for Jawar Sultan's family, because it was, again, the same. They couldn't integrate in the local community and they couldn't go back to Afghanistan. She sent me the pictures of the kids, and I knew that what will the kids do if like, they had no future, they couldn't go to school. They were in a very, very difficult situation. So we decided to sponsor them.
But when we're looking at refugees overseas, it's not just are they a convention refugee or an asylum class or country or source country, but as well, are they going to be able to resettle in Canada? So we take into account things like their age, their education, their language skills, how well have they been able to adapt to their new situation, to just try and gauge how well they'll be able to resettle in Canada. But where protection needs are really high, if someone's in a really serious situation, we don't give as much weight to those resettlement issues. It's really a judgment call based on the specific circumstances.
Single parents with large families face challenges to becoming independent in Canada. However, Ms. Sultan's protection needs and the strong support of her sponsoring group convinced the visa officer to accept her family for resettlement to Canada. In cases like this, the sponsors may be asked to sign a sponsorship for longer than 1 year. Women on their own have a hard time in refugee camps, where they are vulnerable to attack. A refugee from Afghanistan, Mahmouda Osmani, lived in Pakistan and worked in a camp there.
I got involved with Mahmouda when I was in Pakistan. I had gone to Pakistan to visit the refugee camps and dispute some of the donations which our organization had raised. I met Mahmouda there. She was working also there at the refugee camps, and she assisted me to reach many of the women. She told me about her stories, and she said how desperate she is to get the protection. I mean, she was in desperate need of protection.
My life was in danger there. I got many threat letter and warning letter and phone calls, so it wasn't safe for me.
I felt she was really in danger. She requested me if I could sponsor her, and I did a little bit background check, of course, there. To make sure she's eligible for the program. And there was no hope of her returning back to Afghanistan because of the problem for the women in Afghanistan, and also she couldn't integrate locally in Pakistan. So I decided to sponsor her and her sisters. I did that.
There are, of course, other urgent situations. In the case of Solomon Fikre Selassie, a 27-year-old man who fled his home country of Ethiopia in fear for his life, he was under threat of arrest in neighboring Egypt.
It was urgent for him to be out of Egypt because for Ethiopians, there's no status in Egypt. They're in the country basically, I guess you can say illegally. They don't have work permits, they don't have the right to work or to go to school. And it's very common for them to be picked up by the police or by the guard, whomever the authorities are there in Cairo, and to be deported, or to be put in prison or to be sent out of the country.
For people like Solomon and Mahmouda, for Jawar and the Shines and the Asganis, and all those like them, we need to be sure that when we say, yes, we will sponsor you, that the application we put forward is based on established criteria, that they need protection, that they cannot return home, and that they cannot settle in the country where they are currently in asylum. This way we know that they really do have a good chance of being resettled soon.
Here is an opportunity for you to make a friend. At the same time, reach out to someone who is in total despair, and it's like changing someone's life. And so it's an opportunity for people to reach out to people who are helpless, and by deciding to sponsor, you are literally saving a life. At the same time, you'll end up making a friend.